And now we look at developments in the Democratic Republic of Congo. The SABC election results were expected today, but that has been postponed. We speak to the Electoral Institute for Sustainable Democracy in Africa. It's a not-for-profit organization with field offices across the continent. They strive for excellence in the promotion of credible elections, citizen participation, and strong political institutions for sustainable democracy in Africa. EISA is supported by a local citizen network, SYMOCEL, in the DRC. They deployed 20,000 observers for that poll. To speak to us more about this says Denis Kadima. He is the Executive Director for EISA. Very good evening, and thank you very much for joining us.
It's my pleasure.
Perhaps let's first start with the postponement of the announcement of the elections. Some people would have said it was anticipated given the tumultuous nature of the elections, but others are saying it's very surprising and it's undemocratic.
Yeah, you see, when before the postponement of the election, the Electoral Commission made it clear that by Christmas the results would be available, which means 2 days after. They were hoping to use the voting machine and transmit it electronically. But suddenly we start learning that it's not possible to be done. I think what happened is, from all accounts, what happened is the result must have surprised everyone. But also what is interesting is the voting machine, while it was rejected by everyone, it has made any manipulation of the result very difficult. So the postponement is because they want to gather all the manual result sheet, and we know that will be a very long process because of the size of the country and the challenges in terms of logistics and so on. So this postponement is looked by many with suspicion.
We'll talk about the ultimate results in just a moment, but it's very curious what you're saying about the election machinery, the electronic aspect of it. Elections in Africa typically viewed very pessimistically, and EISA, you would have overseen quite a number of them. What made this one particularly difficult to manipulate if you look at the biometrics and the system itself?
You see, what happened is, when in traditional elections, you have a manual count and everyone gets a sheet of paper. And then if they want to manipulate it, they can just increase voter participation and all of that. But this time around, the big difference is they've also given to the party agent, they've given them the result sheet, but generated by the voting machine. So it makes it very difficult to go back to the machine and start it over. And it's 75,000 voting machine. That's quite a lot. So if people are able to manipulate the manual voting, but it will be very difficult to do it for the other side of the count. So that's where we are at this moment. And
I'd imagine that as an objective observer, it would be difficult to then speak to, or even the speculation about whose interest the manipulation would be. But there were quite a lot of concerns about the role that former President Joseph Kabila would play, including endorsing some of the candidates. Would it be in his party's favor and their candidate for that manipulation?
Look, there is no secret that in 2011 there was clear manipulation. Everyone knows that the one who was declared the winner himself, Kabila, may not have won that election. This time around, so people, based on that background, they are convinced that the same will happen. Because from all accounts, where we had 20,000 observers, as you rightly mentioned, every result that we got, not every result, but let's say the vast majority of the results showed that people want change, and change meaning support to the opposition. It's widespread, it's very widespread. It will be, again, the difference is so big, because in those places where we had our teams, the opposition, the two main opposition candidates are in front. So it makes it very difficult to beat the second and beat the first. It will entail a lot of manipulation.
What did your observers find in terms of the situation on the ground, and whether or not the electoral officials were keeping to the stipulations of free and fair elections?
Look, there were a lot of challenges. First of all, in many places, about 10 to 20% of the polling station where the teams were. The observers were not allowed in, you see. Even in some other places, when the counting had to start, the observers were prevented from entering. So that's one of the challenges. But if you look at the machine itself, it's a new instrument that is being used. Even the polling staff were essentially learning on the spot. So it was very difficult, let alone the voters. You know, during the voter education campaign, they were not able to go everywhere with the machine. They had just a couple of thousand of machines for teaching people how to vote. So the teaching was taking place just before voting. Or you are in the booth, you ask people, what do I do next? So that's how it was working. It was very difficult. But at the end of the day, it happened, but you know, the queues ended up being very long because people were finding it difficult to vote. And we believe that some of the people could not wait that long. And the other thing is many people didn't find their name on the list because the list of polling station was changed at the last minute. So there were so many challenges, but despite that, there was a big will by the people to vote and to vote essentially in a certain way.
Just looking at the current situation with the UN Security Council divided on what steps should follow next, the US demanding that credible and accurate election results be released. What would be a reflection of that, given all of these issues that you've raised, these variables?
Look, it's clear that after the observers have spoken and the parties have spoken and people who were at the polling station saw that this was a very challenging process, but at the same time, it was quite clear that during the campaign that the opposition got massive support in terms of attendance to their rallies. While on the ruling party side, it was not that obvious that people were coming out of curiosity to hear what is their plan for the future. People know what they've given to them during their tenure. It has been very difficult for the people of Congo. So the mood was for change. And the opposition didn't have to dish out money for people to attend their rallies. So from the campaign itself, it was very clear that the opposition, the main two opposition candidates who are Felix Tshisekedi and Martin Fayulu, one of them was going to win. So now the international community, SADC and the regional community, all they are divided because there are people who are convinced that if the government of Congo is not pushed in a corner, they may announce a result which is not credible, which doesn't reflect the will of the people. So you see this division because sometimes also our leaders, I think they make that mistake of, you know, this kind of African solidarity. Even when there is cheating, that's quite unfortunate.
And that's something we'll keep our eye on. Thank you very much, Denis Kadima. He's the Executive Director for EISA.
Thank you.
About